Coming up on Talking Points, Albany is drawing new congressional lines for New York, how this could play a role nationally.
And a plan from local officials to develop properties in Syracuse and keep people off the streets.
And Donald Trump continues to face legal trouble in multiple cases. What exactly his punishments he's facing, all that and more. Talking Points starts now.
New York State's top court has ordered the redrawing of its congressional maps. Welcome into Talking Points. I'm Benjamin Schiller.
And I'm Olivia Maniscalco. When the redistricting was first announced, many Democrats expected the lines to be in their favor. But on Thursday, a bipartisan state commission overwhelmingly approved a proposed map, one that looks like it could be a big help to the Republicans. Here to break down these new district lines is Talking Points analyst Ben Bascuk. Ben?
Yeah, Olivia, so Democrats are going to see a slight benefit with these new maps, building upon their recent win of replacing Republican George Santos with Democrat Tom Suozzi. Now, most of these alterations of district lines by the New York Independent Redistricting Committee are taking place in northern and central New York, especially right here in District 22, currently held by Republican Brandon Williams. He's seen his district lines shift more into Auburn, Cortland, and of course Syracuse, all of which have more of a Democratic voter base. He is one of those 5 Republican seats that the DNC is targeting in hopes of winning over the House from Republicans come next election season. Moving forward into New York 19, held by Republican Mark Molinaro, he's seen his alterations move more into Oswego County, where he's going to pick up some conservative voters, but not a significant amount enough to ensure his seat. So he is still at risk. Looking at New York 14 in the Bronx and New York City, held by Congresswoman AOC, she's losing some Hispanic voters in Corona, but she's picking them back up in Jackson Heights. Now, the IRC had one goal in mind in approving these maps 9-1, sending them to the state legislature in Albany, where they'll be passed by a 2/3 vote or rejected by a majority. They set out to avoid another messy court battle and further allegations of Democratic gerrymandering. This leaves a lot of voters wondering, why are the district lines changing not even a year after they changed the first time? Well, let's look at the census data right here in New York 22. All minority voter groups are under 10% in those single-digit ranges, and now more recent data is showing that they haven't shifted from more than 2 to 3%. This is leading a lot of Republicans to blame liberals and Democrats for gerrymandering and for taking advantage and politicizing the courts. Vice Chair of the IRC, Ken Jenkins, came out and said the lines reflect every member's good faith effort. This is going to be making New York critical come next election season, when Democrats' razor-thin control of the House could be at significant risk.
Ben, thank you. This is definitely a critical time here in Onondaga County as well. And let's stick to this county news. Local county officials are working hard on a new plan aimed to ease the housing crisis here in Onondaga County.
Here in studio discussing how this plan could impact many in the community and making her Talking Points debut is Megan Acker. Megan?
Thank you, Olivia. This past Thursday, the Onondaga County Industrial Development Agency approved a new tax exemption plan intended to promote development in this area. This plan gives tax breaks on a case-by-case basis to developers building apartments, particularly ones intended for low-income and senior residents. This decision is one of many attempts to alleviate what has been deemed a housing crisis in central New York. Recently, the state comptroller, Thomas DiNapoli, released a report on housing across New York State, noting that cost burden is, quote, the main cause of housing insecurity, end quote, with an estimated 25% of central New York households experiencing cost burden. Simultaneously, a 75% increase in homelessness has been recorded across central New York in the past year, and an estimated 1 in every 10 Syracuse City students are experiencing homelessness. Additionally, record rent spikes that were unique to the area in 2023 continue to have repercussions as central New Yorkers struggle to get back on their feet. With the impending population influx likely to be brought on by the establishment of the Micron facility, Mayor Ben Welch has pledged that 2,500 new housing options will be available by the end of his term. This is one of the latest housing initiatives that have been proposed for Syracuse City since even before the COVID-19 epidemic, which catastrophically impacted housing availability for many central New York residents.
And let's talk about this housing crisis even more. How does Mayor Ben Welch actually plan to do this?
Thank you, Ben. In addition to this recent tax exemption, Syracuse City has partnered with Home Headquarters to establish 40 new units that are dedicated to affordable housing. Home Headquarters is a nonprofit company which receives money from both state and local governments. Now, these initiatives have been inspired by the Syracuse Housing Study, which was conducted in 23 to assess the level of the crisis in Central New York. This established the Syracuse Housing Trust Fund, which dedicates funds specifically to both developing and refurbishing homes in the Syracuse City area. The Syracuse Housing Strategy Project is set to be finished in 2024 using the information based on the Syracuse Housing Study.
Now, how do these new housing options alleviate cost burden for Central New Yorkers?
So Syracuse City actually has many provisions in place for ensuring that new housing development will be affordable. One of these provisions is the Rezone Syracuse Plan. This replaced a lot of archaic zoning laws and includes a provision that mandates that 12.5% of all newly developed housing must be affordable. Home Headquarters units specifically are going to be available to first-time homebuyers whose income are under 80% of the area median. Additionally, the East Adams Street project is dedicated to redeveloping public housing, and the Old Syracuse Development Center has been announced to be included as a housing and job site area.
And we've been talking about Onondaga County, but let's talk about Central New York as a whole. What are the other counties and cities doing in Central New York to solve the housing dilemma?
So the city of Oswego has recently received state funding and finished the Lock 7 apartments, which includes affordable housing. The city of Utica has begun construction on the Art Space Utica lofts, and the city of Auburn has recently announced its plans to seek to join Governor Hochul's pro-housing community program.
Megan, thank you. Now, staying in Onondaga County, United States Majority Leader Chuck Schumer took a visit to the county today to the district attorney's office. He revealed that the provision making fully plastic firearms, often known as ghost guns, illegal is set to expire next month. Now, without these provisions, ghost guns could legally be made without metal, which makes them undetectable to metal detectors. Schumer says the possibility of this key legislation expiring for the first time in over 35 years has created cause for serious concern. He also mentions that law enforcement, police, TSA, public venues, and sports leagues have all voiced their concerns about what might happen if Congress doesn't reauthorize the Undetectable Firearms Act.
Well, the legal woes seem to be continuing for former President Donald Trump. We will unpack those and more after the break.
Come on, it's not that hard.
My big man fingers are having a problem with these little tiny buttons.
Whoa, watch it there. Your blood pressure's gonna go through the roof.
Tell me about it. I'm trying to learn how to get it down. Instead, it keeps going up.
High blood pressure can increase the risk for heart attack or stroke. Learn how to keep yours at a healthy range.
Ever hear a voice command? Just say text barbershop to 97779.
That's not what I said.
Just give me that. Now my blood pressure's up.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Well, welcome back to Talking Points. We are just 5 short days away from the most anticipated Republican primary of the 2024 election campaign. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley returns home this week, trailing former President Donald Trump by a heavy margin in most polling.
Well, this margin is coming as a surprise to many, though, as Trump's legal battles seem to be falling against his favor in a domino-like effect. Joining us now in studio to discuss Trump's legal problems is Talking Points analyst Luke Welch. Luke, how is Trump handling these scares in court?
Well, Ben, it seems like Trump is handing over to the number 300 to handle these battles in courts. And by that, I mean he's releasing $399 shoes to combat his recently gained $355 million court costs, as we are 337 sleeps away from the next inauguration day. But let's exceed this number for a second and recap Trump's recent legal woes. Last year, Trump spent just under $75 million in court costs, legal fees, and interest. In the first 20 months of 2024 alone, Trump has racked over 7 times this, roughly $542 million. 3 weeks ago, Trump lost his defamation case of famous author E. Jean Carroll and is ordered to pay her over $83 million. This was the 3rd time Carroll sued Trump, and it might not be the last, however. Socials are buzzing to encourage Carroll to sue Trump a 4th time after he mocked her yet again at another rally in Michigan on Saturday night. Let's take a look at what he had to say. Trump saying, "Who is she? Who is the woman? It's so unfair what's happening in our country. Our court system is a mess. What's happening in our country, they have to straighten it out," end quote. Now, it's hard to imagine forgetting someone you have faced in court 3 times and possibly a 4th, but staying in New York City, let's move to this past week on Friday, when Judge Arthur Engoron deemed Trump and his 2 sons liable for submitting fraudulent financial statements to the state. Trump is now being ordered to pay $355 million to the state after attempting to receive more favorable insurance policies and loan rates. Eric and Don Jr. will join him by also paying $4 million each. All 3 Trumps will be unable to lead business operations or apply for loans in the state for 3 years. This leads us to our total of $542 million in 2024 and $617 million net legal debt over the past 14 months. And this dark cloud that seems to be surrounding Trump isn't over, though, as his hush money battle in court with former adult film actress Stormy Daniels is set for just 5 weeks from today. A 3-judge panel also deciding 2 weeks ago that Trump is not immune from facing charges regarding his alleged interference with the 2020 election. This decision will allow for the continuation of his initial interference case. A decision can be expected from that, along with an appeal after being removed from the state primary ballot in Colorado and Maine. Olivia.
Yes, Luke. Now, you've talked about quite a bit of legal battles that the former president is going through. The bill seems like it could be hefty. Can he afford it while still funding his campaign?
Well, Olivia, it's highly common that these numbers are reduced, although they seem big and they seem large. It's likely that he won't have to pay this entire total, whether that be through appeals courts, interest rates, or even declaring bankruptcy, which I know would be shocking for a future presidential candidate. However, Trump claimed a few weeks ago that he's worth $10 billion, a recent financial analysis only deeming him worth $2 billion. It says in that same financial analysis, it said that he only has $300 million cash on hand, which does not even measure up to the $355 million that he would owe the state of New York, for those fraudulent claims. And let's turn to his opponent now in South Carolina, Nikki Haley. Let's see what she had to say about how Trump is using the money to spend on his legal funds. Let's take a listen.
I don't want the RNC to become his piggy bank for his personal court cases. We've already seen him spend $50 million worth of campaign contributions towards his personal court cases. Now we see him trying to get control of the RNC so that he can continue not to have to pay his own legal fees.
And let's talk about Nikki Haley. How close are things in South Carolina, and what is she saying about her top competitor?
Well, I'll first talk about that spot right there. There's 2 reasons why Haley thinks that Trump does not deserve the money. He is not the outright RNC candidate, and she does not believe that these funds should be going towards any legal fees and towards the campaign themselves. She's going on degrading him for his foreign policy mishaps. Trump previously commented on the Navalny assassination, as we mentioned before, and saying that his foreign policy takes are unsafe for the nation, the world, and for his future campaign. Haley also says that her foreign experience that Trump actually granted her in his previous administration will have her doing the job better. That's all I have for you now, guys. Olivia and Ben, back to you.
Luke, thank you. Now, as if that wasn't enough on the former president's plate, the Georgia judge in charge of the election interference case gave the green light last Monday for a hearing involving misconduct allegations against DA Fani Willis.
But now the tables have turned as Willis has been accused of a, quote, improper relationship with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade. Our Luke Radel has that latest.
District Attorney Fani, F-A-N-I, last name is Willis.
A defiant district attorney taking the stand after former President Trump and his allies have tried to disqualify her from the case against him for alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election.
You're confused. You think I'm on trial. These people are on trial for trying to steal an election in 2020. I'm not on trial, no matter how hard you try to put me on trial.
But Willis is facing scrutiny for an alleged improper relationship with Nathan Wade, a special prosecutor she hired on the Trump case. The question is if they had a romantic relationship before the Trump case began. If so, that could be a conflict of interest. Fox 5 Atlanta's Randy Travis reports.
Judge McAfee has to decide whether the conflict of interest was so egregious that Fonnie Willis and perhaps even the entire Fulton County DA's office needs to be removed from the case.
A former friend of Willis, Robin Yurdy, says that she knew of Willis and Wade's relationship long before the Trump case began. Here's what Trump attorney Steve Sadow asked her Thursday morning.
Are you certain that Ms. Willis told you about the romantic relationship with Mr. Wade prior to November 1st of 2021?
Yes.
But Willis and Wade lay out a different timeline.
When did your romantic relationship with Miss Willis begin?
2022.
When in 2022?
Early 2022.
And then there's the issue of those romantic getaways the pair took together. How exactly were those paid for? Wade says he initially paid for them up front with his credit card and then was reimbursed by Willis with cash, which doesn't leave a paper trail.
You don't have a single solitary deposit slip to corroborate or support any of your allegations that you were paid by Mrs. Willis in cash, do you?
No, sir.
Not a single solitary one.
Not a one.
Willis, for her part, says she'll remain on the case prosecuting the former president and pushed back on the attorneys questioning her in ways that echoed a certain legal drama.
So let's be clear, because you lied in this. Let me tell you which one you lied in. Right here. I think you lied right here. No. This is the truth, Judge. And it is a lie.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
The truth is that it's up to Judge Scott McAfee to decide whether Willis and Wade will lead the Trump case going forward. Reporting tonight for Talking Points, Lou Gradle, CitrusTV News.
Coming up after the break, Republican members of the House impeached Alejandro Mayorkas, the Homeland Security Secretary, with a simple majority vote on Tuesday. What happens next after the break?
Here's your check. Oh, you got it. You know, since I got rid of my car, I really enjoy walking.
Okay. God, no.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates.
Oh, you're home early. You live with your mom?
That'll set your game back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome to my house. Lately, not my happy place. Everybody's pretty tired of each other. The parents were not themselves. My little brothers were morphing into small creatures. The walls were closing in. Clearly, a case of too much family, too close, 24/7. And there's a lot of that going around right now. If this sounds like your house, try going someplace new. YourLifeYourVoice.org. You'll find lots of ideas to help you handle the family stresses of being confined to close quarters. YourLifeYourVoice.org. It might not get you out of the house, but it could help you find a little more breathing room.
Welcome back into Talking Points. Let's head to Washington, where Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas has been impeached by the House of Representatives. This was the second attempt to impeach him, and it went through by only one vote. He becomes the first cabinet member to be impeached in over 150 years. Here to break down what that means for Mayorkas is Talking Points analyst Peter Barry. Peter, good evening.
Benjamin, good evening. The White House and the Department of Homeland Security are acting unfazed after this historic impeachment of Alejandro Mayorkas. But the White House was responding in part saying, quote, history will not look kindly on House Republicans for their blatant act of unconstitutional partisanship that has targeted an honorable public servant in order to play petty political games, end quote. The Republican-controlled House of Representatives impeached him by a 214 to 213 vote on Tuesday. In the first impeachment attempt, the House Republicans fell just 2 votes short of a majority. Here's what one of the leading Republicans for this impeachment had to say about the failed first attempt.
board, and it's 215 to 215. I have never missed George Santos more. That now we don't get to execute on an impeachment trial of Mayorkas because they threw George Santos out. I also wondered, like, wouldn't it have been nice to still have Kevin McCarthy in the House of Representatives? Never thought you'd hear me say that, but Kevin McCarthy, after being dislodged as Speaker, took his marbles and went home.
Let's talk about specifics here, Peter. What did the GOP charge Mayorkas with this impeachment?
Well, there's going to be two separate charges for Mayorkas. First of all, he was apparently breaking the public trust and also not enforcing border security here. But three Republicans were very on the fence here, such as Ken Buck, who did not find this as grounds of impeachment. Although with the return of House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, the vote went through on the second attempt. But now it's up to the Senate who will decide whether they want to vote on a trial or dismiss the charges entirely here.
And Mayorkas is speaking out. What did he say in the exclusive interview with CNN on Friday?
Well, Ben, the CNN segment was only around 75 seconds long, but he was saying that these are very baseless claims and that he'll still do his job. He was even at the Munich conference just yesterday with Vice President Harris. However, for the time being, it seems like the House Republicans will block a lot of immigration bills as long as Biden is president.
Peter, thank you. Moving into some international news, last week, multiple world leaders meeting in Germany for the annual Munich Security Conference. During the conference, leaders had multiple talking points, including European security and the ongoing war in Ukraine. Here to recap the conference is analyst Ethan Kraut. Ethan?
Thank you, Olivia. As you mentioned, Russia and Ukraine was a major talking point during last week's Munich Security Conference, with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in attendance. Zelensky met with members of the U.S. House of Representatives during the conference to provide updates on the war effort and the need for U.S. support. There is a bill on the House floor that would provide Ukraine with $60 billion. However, Speaker Mike Johnson has said he will not bring it up for a vote. Now, this all comes as there are new reports that Russia is trying to put a nuclear weapon in space. The potential weapon would threaten thousands of low-orbit satellites that keep the world connected. U.S. officials say global communication systems would fail, leaving emergency services, cell phones, generators, and much more to malfunction. A potential explosion would also leave debris scattered throughout the low Earth orbit, making it nearly impossible for objects to navigate the sky, such as Starlink internet communication satellites and spy satellites. The intelligence community was split on how much of this highly classified information should be shared. Some argued, though, that enough needs to be shared with China and India in order to convince them of the gravity of the threat. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said it will be up to Chinese President Xi Jinping and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to talk Russian President Vladimir Putin down from this plan, citing Russia's clear disdain for the United States.
Now, Ethan, how immediate of a threat is posed by a looming Russian launch?
So the intelligence community is split on whether Russia will actually launch a nuclear weapon into space. Now, this would be breaking the Outer Space Treaty of 1967, and it's unclear if Putin is willing to go that far. Now, one thing agencies do agree on is that Russia is not ready to actually launch an attack from their weapon. And it is going to be used more as a reminder of this technology that they have and a reminder to the U.S. and their NATO allies not to push them too far. Now, as for human safety on Earth, White House spokesperson John Kirby said, quote, "And though Russia's pursuit of this particular capability is troubling, there was no immediate threat to anyone's safety." He'd go on to say that we are not talking about a weapon that could be used to attack human beings or cause physical destruction here on Earth, end quote.
Now, we know Russia was a pressing topic at the conference, but it's not all they talked about. What else stuck out?
Another major talking point during the conference was China. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi was talking to many foreign officials, including U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and he had one clear message. It was a warning not to cut China out of the world economy. Wang Yi made a quote saying, "Today, more people have come to realize that the absence of cooperation is the biggest risk. Those who attempt to shut China out in the name of de-risking will be making a historical mistake," end quote. Now, Wang Yi is clearly making a reference to the EU's aims to de-risk from China, meaning that they do not want their economy to be solely focused on China, with tensions rising and the potential of a Chinese-Taiwanese war looming. Olivia?
Ethan Crowd, thank you. And sticking with the Munich Security Conference, one of the most impactful speakers was Yulia Navalnaya. Just last week, her husband Alexei Navalny was reported dead while serving a prison sentence in Russia. Alexei Navalny was the head of the opposition against current President Vladimir Putin, and many have speculated the Kremlin is behind the death. Yulia and other members of the family say they have been barred from gaining access to Navalny's body. Navalnaya is determined to continue her late husband's opposition work, saying to global leaders that they must fight back. Take a listen.
They will be brought to justice, and this day will come soon. And I would like to call upon all the international community, all the people in the world. We should come together and we should fight against this evil.
Now, the Biden administration is working towards sending Ukraine long-range ballistic missiles to use against Russia. The move comes as Russia forces successfully advance into Avdiivka. The town has seen some of the most fierce battle of the entire war and is now in Russian control. The move was followed up by an intensification of attacks in the surrounding area. Moscow forces carried out over 20 airstrikes this past weekend. All this has put increasing pressure on Ukraine, with the war seeing its 2-year anniversary later this week. Coming up, Nikki Haley and the former president are scheduled to face off in the South Carolina primary on Saturday. What to look out for after the break.
Taking care of a family member can lead to plenty of questions. Fortunately, there's a place to get the answers, for them and for you. Find articles, tips, and tools from experts and others who have been in your place. The Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving.
Dad?
Just 1 minute, okay?
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Welcome back in the Talking Point. South Carolina is holding a Republican primary on Saturday. 7 candidates will be on the ballot, 3 of which have already suspended their 2024 campaigns. The 2 major contenders, as expected, are former President Donald Trump and South Carolina's former Governor Nikki Haley.
Now, South Carolina could be the last stand for Haley's campaign. Not only is it her home state, but the polls show her trailing far behind. She has said that she does not think she needs to win South Carolina to remain viable, but must do better than she did in New Hampshire, where she had 43% of the vote. So, Ben, let's take a look at some of the polls. It looks like former President, Donald Trump has 77.7% of the Republican vote, as we've seen from 538 polling, and Nikki Haley, the former governor, has 16.6%. I mean, this really is not looking good for her. According to a CBS News poll, 75% of the voters said they don't care that Nikki Haley's from the state. They said that they're voting for a president based on how they're going to do with national issues. You know, a lot of the voters care about, they think that former President Trump would more likely support an abortion ban, or that a lot of them are more MAGA Republicans, so it could have something to do with this.
You know what's really interesting? Nikki Haley's campaign actually called for a state of the race speech tomorrow at noon, so it's been really interesting. I don't think she's going to drop out, but she might be signaling that South Carolina might be her last battle before she calls the campaign, essentially.
Yeah, you know, because it's not like her polling in South Carolina is looking very different to some of the other states that are going to be very key for her.
Listen, I wish we can continue that conversation. That's all the time we have for you on this episode of Talking Points. Be sure to check us out on social media at CitrusTV News. I'm Benjamin Schiller.
And I'm Olivia Maniscalco. Have a great night, Syracuse.